Welcome to class. I am really excited about today's class. In some respects, this is almost like the class that I really want to teach. Don't worry, we won't only be doing basic computer games in this class, but I really do love this moment in computer gaming history because this is very much my own personal entry into or really fits very much with my own personal entry into the computer gaming scene. Not that this was the only thing that we had on my TRS-80 color computer, but you'll recall from last class that this TRS-80 color computer was my introduction to computing in general, and it had well, here, let me just fire up the emulator that I have installed on this computer. So here we go. This is an emulated version of what would come up when I turn on my computer. And I don't know if you saw how quick that was, but that's actually pretty much as quick as booting a computer would be back then. You turn on the computer and you get this screen. Now, this screen is not very helpful if you're expecting, oh, I don't know, a nice fancy graphical user interface, something that tells you what you should do. This just gives you a copyright notice of that you've got some version of BASIC. And it's under license from a little company called Microsoft, and then it tells you okay, and it has a little flashing cursor. Now, this is typical of the computers of the day. So this is the TRS-80 color computer was just one of many famous computers coming out at around this time. Another one was the Apple II. You might have heard of it. We mentioned it last class. Another one would have been the Commodore 64. Coming out again around about this time. And they would all boot into this computer programming language called BASIC. Sina, you have a question.
What happens if you type help into the...
So Sina asks, what happens if you type help? I get an SN error, very informative. It tells me, so SN, if you look it up in the manual, is a syntax error. Which again doesn't tell you very much, but I know now from years of experience that a syntax error is something where the computer doesn't understand what you just typed, basically. This makes no sense to the computer. So the computer is not designed to give you help. It is not user-friendly in any way, shape, or form. Well, that's not quite true, because it's programmed in a language called BASIC, or rather it's provided to you with this language called BASIC. It's programmed itself in assembly language. And BASIC was, as we see here in the course, if we go down to the basic computer games section of the course and click on what is BASIC and why is it important, it's beginner's all-purpose symbolic instruction code. And you should totally read this section of Wikipedia if you haven't already, or this really excellent little article in defense of BASIC. But basically, no pun intended, the significance of it was that it was designed for beginners. The understanding was that everybody would be using their computer by programming the computer in this language called BASIC. So the assumption is everybody's going to start by programming this language, learning to program in this language. And my computer came with a nice thick little manual, which I unfortunately don't have with me, but it taught me how to program in BASIC. So BASIC is really important to the history of computer gaming because it made it possible, made game programming possible to a whole bunch of people. Basically, anybody who had a computer could program their own games in BASIC if they took the time to learn how to program in BASIC. Of course, obviously, not everybody did that, especially when there were other computer games written in much faster languages like assembly language. It's basically almost like binary, as I mentioned last time. And you could still buy and download cartridges and other. Well, no, you couldn't download. Downloading didn't exist. You could buy cassette tapes, or sometimes if you had a more advanced computer, programs on disk, which you could insert into your computer and play. Games like Donkey King, which is of course a clone of Donkey Kong. But really, this basic programming language is so important because, as I say, every microcomputer came with it. And I highly recommend, if you're at all interested, to download this version of Vintage Basic, which runs on your modern computer, and which I'm going to be demoing a couple of our games today in it. And if you're interested, I also wrote a story about learning to program in BASIC, which includes a program listing, which is actually a game that I was trying to program. Actually, this is a game I was trying to make up. In the story here, it's a game I'm trying to type in from a listing, which is what people did. So if I go to this Vintage Basic site, and look at the games section, they have a link to this book called Basic Computer Games, and this is how people would start with gaming on their computer. They wouldn't necessarily have a whole big library of games. They might, because software piracy was pretty rampant back then. Most of the early games that I got were not exactly paid for. So the salesman at Radio Shack provided us with these cassette tapes with programs on them. It's like, well, that's great. I'll just use these. But a lot of games that people would play came out of this little book called Basic Computer Games. And there's even a scan. This even has scans of the actual games. So if I go to Hammurabi, here's the game, and they tell you a little bit about the game, and then they have the program listing. Well, no, sorry. Then they have an example of the output of the game, and then if you go to the next page, you have fun graphics and the actual program listing that you would then type into your computer, and you would keep typing all 999 lines. Well, they're not actually 999 lines because you're skipping lines, and then you would have type this whole thing out, and finally you would type the words "run." That would run the program. So, for example, here I am on my color computer, and I would start typing. So if I go to the program listing, it's like, okay, 10, print tab 32 Hammurabi. Okay, 10, print tab 32. Oops. I have to get used to a different program layout.
It must have been a pain if you weren't able to afford I can't remember what it's called. The thing that lets you save something on your computer.
Yes, well, if you didn't have a disk drive, then you were saving your programs to cassette tape, which took forever. Well, not forever, but like a game that a basic computer game could take up to like a minute to load into your system. And you're just waiting for a whole minute while it's going dee 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 dee. Anyhow, so here I've just typed the first line of the program. I type run, and there it is, Hammurabi. That's but I obviously need to type a few more lines to actually get this in. This site that I've linked you to makes it a little bit easier for you, so you don't have to type all this stuff in. Oh, excellent! Yes, there are videos on assembly language. There's actually computer programming games which will teach you assembly language. I just was playing a game called Shenzhen IO. You might know of Shenzhen as the company, the city in China where a lot of computers are manufactured. And there's a cool little game called Shenzhen.io, which actually teaches you assembly language, or a version of assembly language, and that's part of the how you play the game. It's a more modern game, so I'm not covering that, just mentioning that one. But anyhow, back to basics. Haha, pun intended. So here we are. We're typing out games, or rather, I'm going to actually take the shortcut and where did I put my? I have too many tabs open as usual. Here we are. So here's the story I wrote about learning how to program in BASIC. You might want to read it. It's just kind of a fun little story. Here, this is a link to the basic computer games, and there's scans and a link to all the games. I've already shown you all this stuff. So let's get on to the very first game, Hammurabi. So you might notice, if you're a student of history, that Hammurabi is spelled wrong. I'm not quite certain if this is why, but my guess is, let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I don't think it's a coincidence that it is 8 characters long, this spelling of the word Hammurabi. It's supposed to have 2 M's, I think. Because in those days, you had file names, a limit on file names, which was typically 8 characters for your file name. So you couldn't fit the whole of Hammurabi in, so why not just misspell the name? And so it became Hammurabi. So we can, if you want to play this game, the easy way to do it is just to click on the link here, which will take you to the Internet Archive. And this is a version on DOS that you can play right in your browser. I am wanting to do this the more fun way. Oops, that's not the one that I want. So I've loaded it in here on my computer. Now, you might not be able to see this very well. Maybe this one would actually be a better one to use. But I'm actually running this in Vintage Basic. So if you look up here, I've got Vintage Basic installed, and I'm just typing vintbas space hammurabi.bas. It's not too far away from what I would do in real life. I would have typed this all in, and I would just have typed run. But anyhow, so here we are, Hammurabi. Going to try our hand at governing ancient Sumeria for a 10-year term of office. Hammurabi reports to me that in year 1, no people starved, 5 came to the city, population is now 100, city now owns 1,000 acres, you've harvested 3 bushels per acre, rats ate 200 bushels, you now have 2,800 bushels in store, land is trading at 20 bushels per acre. How many acres do you want to buy? Oh, well, let's buy a whole bunch of acres. I don't know, let's buy, I don't know, 20, I have 1,000 acres, and it's 20 bushels per acre. So I could buy how many acres? 2,800. I could buy quite a lot of acres. Let's just buy 100 acres. That'll cost me what? 2,000 bushels? Wait, that might be a problem. What may be the problem here?
Yeah, you might starve yourself.
Yes, my citizens might starve. Okay, let's not buy that much. Let's just buy 30 acres. How many bushels do you wish to feed your people? I don't know. And this is a great example of how completely user unfriendly the game is. I have no idea how many bushels my 100 people need. Is it? Yeah, my population is 100. There's no documentation here. Maybe there is in the if I like look in the basic computer games book. Where was that again? But I'm gonna just guess. I'm gonna say I'm gonna feed my people 200 bushels. How many acres do I want to plant with seed? Well, I own 1,000 acres, so let's do 1,000. Oh no, I own 1,000. Let's plant them all with seed. 1,030. But you only have 100 people to tend the field. Oh, okay. So then I need to. I can only do 100 acres. Ah! I starved 90 people in 1 year. Due to this extreme mismanagement, you've not only been impeached and thrown out of office, but you have now been declared national think. Wow, I lost in 1 turn. That was pretty pathetic.
I tried it 3 times and I kept starving people.
Yeah. All right. So has anybody else played this and maybe gotten a little more success with this game?
I also lost turn 1 after trying like 8 times.
Yeah, same. First time I lost immediately. I got to like 3 rounds in a row without dying.
So yeah, not an easy game here. Cadmiel, what
I was playing it earlier. I was only able to get to round 2. But I noticed while watching you, it seems like every person requires at least 20 bushels of food.
20 bushels. Oh, okay. Well, maybe we should try that again here. Okay, let's go back to my game here. See if we can do a bit better here. I'm gonna get your guys' advice then, since you have some experience playing this now. Okay, land is trading at 22 bushels per acre. Do we want to buy land? We have 1,000 acres. I don't think we want to buy land right now because we can only actually farm 100 acres. So I'm going to say, how many acres do you wish to buy?
0.
0. Let's do 0. How many? Oh, I can sell. Okay. How many acres do I wish to sell? Let's sell some. Then we get some more money, right?
Yeah, from about 50, because it seems like you don't have enough people to farm that much.
Okay, so we're good. And then how many bushels do we wish to feed your people? So you said about 20 per person? So that would mean 2,000, right?
Yeah, because I tried doing 1,000 to feed the people, and 50 people still starved.
Okay.
So.
All right. So let's give 2,000. How many acres do you wish to plant with seed? Well, we have 100 acres, right? No, 1,000 acres, but we can only plant 100 with seed. So let's do that. Okay, here we go. We got to the next year. Yay. 0 people starved. 7 came to the city. A horrible plague struck. Half the people died. Ah, good grief. My population is down to 53. Okay, I own 950 acres. I harvested 3 bushels per acre. Oh, the rats weren't very much of a problem. I now have 2,150 bushels. Oh, that's not bad. How many acres do I wish to buy? Well, I don't need any acres because I need more people. How many acres do I wish to sell? Let's just keep all our acres. How many bushels do I wish to feed my people? Well, I now have half the population, so I should be able to get by with what, 1,000 bushels? Okay, so what, 1,200? Okay, how many acres do you wish to plant with seed? Well, we can only plant 53, right?
I think you can plant more, because I was able to plant more when I played the game and I only had 100 people. Okay. I was able to plant more than 100, but I wasn't able to plant all the acres. So.
Okay. Well, I'll try more this turn. I got to turn 3 and nobody starved. Hooray. And 12 people came to the city. We have 65 people. I own 950 acres, harvested 2 bushels per acre. That's not so good. All right. Well, let's not buy or sell right now. So let's do, I don't know, what do we want? 1,200? No, 65 is, I only have 1,000 bushels. Oh my. That might be a problem. Okay, well, let's do 800. How many acres do you wish to plant with seed? Let's do 100 acres. Oh, I got to year 4. Yay. Oh, but 25 people starved. That's not good. 10 people came. Population is now 50. Hello, Lucy. City now owns 950. I only have 580 bushels. Wow. Okay, I think we better sell some land, eh? Gonna sell, let's do 100 acres. How many bushels do you wish to feed your people? Well, I should have a lot of bushels now. So let's go to 1,500. How many acres do you wish to plant with seed?
How about trying twice as many people as you have if people can plant 2 acres?
Okay, so let's do, our population is now 50, so let's try 100 acres. Yay, nobody starved. 12 people came. harvested 3 bushels per acre. Rats ate 407 bushels. Wow. Okay. I don't think I can buy any acres. Let's sell some more land. How many bushels do I want to feed my people? So I can now do.
You know, often nowadays people are just complaining, oh, all these games are too handholdy. They tell you what to do all the time. And I guess this is what they all want.
Yeah, well, yeah, this is definitely not holding my hand. How many acres do you wish to plant with seed? Now, actually, one thing to note here. So we're complaining about this, but remember, this is a game that I would have typed in, right? So I would have actually typed in the program listing. So I wouldn't actually know what the program is expecting me to do because I would have typed this in. So why would I need instructions, right? So actually, we could even go to the program listing. Where is the program listing here? I forget. History of computer games. Basic computer games. I should have actually had a link to the program listing, but is here on Vintage Basic. We have the games, and the program listing is right here. So what I can actually do is if I've let's zoom in a bit here. So a horrible plague struck. Can kind of see the stats for when the plague strikes. The variable names are not very descriptive because you can only really have one letter variable names. Maybe occasionally you can have like a letter and a number. How many acres do you wish to plant with seed? Okay. Do I have enough grain? Enough people to tend the crops? There we go. If D is less than 10 times P, then 510. Okay. So P is presumably population, and D was the number of acres we want to plant with seed. So I can plant 10 times the number so each person can plant 10 acres or almost 10 acres. Oh wow. I'm see, that would have been handy to know, right? All right, anyhow, so I don't want to spend too much time on Hammurabi. I'm going to pause. So I think I'm going to pause there. We're actually doing pretty well. We got to year 5 and we're not everybody's dead yet. And we now know a lot more about how to play, because I could plant a whole lot more bushels than I thought. One of my questions that I want to kind of start any discussion about this with is I like the, the comment about handholding. What games does this remind you of? Are there any modern games that this kind of might be a precursor to? Cadmiel.
Literally any decent city builder.
Yes, absolutely. Any city builder. So SimCity, definitely. Luke and Noah.
I would liken it more to, sorry, my brother's playing Smash Brothers in the background. I would liken it either to Animal Crossing or far more like something like Stardew Valley.
Okay, yeah, well, totally Stardew Valley. Yeah.
I would think more like
Hang on, I'm just gonna get what Luke wants to say here.
I haven't played it, but it looks a lot like Civilization, but like just text-based.
Yes.
Kind of.
I'm glad you called out Civilization, because I would totally put this as a proto-Civilization kind of game, and of course Civilization is itself a precursor to all sorts of other games, but I do like that the Stardew Valley reference. That's interesting, that because of course that does kind of fit. It is mostly seems to be a farming game so far. Sina?
I keep wanting to stay still at empires and now
Okay. Well, basically, any of these management style games, even like some of the modern like iOS resource management games, could certainly
I
fit.
was thinking more of Age of Empires because you have to manage the amount of people and you need to make farms.
Right.
Or Northgard.
Okay, so some yeah, you're thinking RTSs. It's not exactly real time, very much turn based. So in that sense, Civilizations is probably a better pick. Anyhow, I want to move on because much as I love Hammurabi, it is a very basic game. Haha, pun intended. It's there's not a lot to it. I mean, and you can even see that from the program listing, right? It's if I look at the actual program listing, which was where I had it here. Oh, here we go. You know, it's oh, I don't know, maybe well, let me copy and paste it into my favorite text editor here. If I just copy and fire up my favorite text editor and paste it in, it's only 117 lines long, so there's not a lot to this one. It's you can even see as you kind of look, even if you don't know basic, you know, a lot of those lines are actually just you know, text, like saying a horrible plague struck the half the people died or whatever. So not a lot to this program. It's pretty simple, but it is a very important one because, as I say, it was in this very important little book that was published, Basic Computer Games, and so a lot of people would have played this. I would not be at all surprised if Sid Meier, the designer of Civilization, played Hammurabi when he was a kid. That would be an interesting research project. See if he's ever mentioned that.
All right. I actually have 2 notes about this game in total.
Oh, yes.
One is it does have RNG, which is something that is like not really a thing in this time, because being able to actually pick a random number, I'm guessing from like the time period that it literally just has a list of numbers that it will go through.
Actually, you are correct. So what they did for random number generation in this time period was they actually took the computers actually had a random number table, which I believe was generated by the roulette wheels.
Yeah, it was literally a group of guys who spun a roulette wheel a few hundred times.
Yeah,
and they came up with a list that people would use math on.
The best way to make sure that this didn't repeat was actually to if your basic programming language had a timer function built in, then what you could do is you could just take like the last second or whatever and use that as a random number generator seed, start at that position in the list. So because who knows when they would, you know, what time it would be when they started the program. Cadmiel.
I think a better time-based random number generation convention would be using the seconds from January 1, 1970 at 12 a.m., which is a very common time format for programming languages.
Yeah, but you'd want to use the actual time that you fired it up, because otherwise it would always be the same. And you don't want to. What you want is something that's always going to be different as your random number generator seed.
I was talking about how many seconds it was from that.
Oh, okay. Yes. Yeah. So yeah. Noah, you said you had 2 comments?
Yeah, I sadly forgot my second one for some reason.
Oh, no worries. All right, I want to move on because I have 4 games here and I really want to get to all of them, at least on some level. So the next one, if I go back to our course here, is Hunt the Wumpus. So this one is this is actually kind of an interesting one in terms of its genesis, because this one isn't in the Basic Computer Games book, but it was inspired by one that was in the Basic Computer Games book. So it was published in a magazine called the Creative Computing. Creative Computing was one of these early magazines, and the magazines would include program listings that you would type in. So this one would be again, a program you would type in from this computer game, from this computer magazine, and it was inspired by by Hercule and a bunch of other grid-based games that were in Basic Computer Games, and the author of this program really didn't like grids. He liked dodecahedrons, so he actually created this game, which is based on a dodecahedron. So the cave system is actually a dodecahedron, which is a complex geometrical shape, three-dimensional geometrical shape. So let's see. Here's the online game. So we're gonna fire it up. This by the way is a Commodore 64 emulator. Let's get the instructions. The Wampus lives in a cave of 20 rooms because each one of these is a vertex on this dodecahedron. The rooms are arranged into dodecahedron. It actually tells you there are bottomless pits. There's 2 rooms. If you fall into them, you lose. There are super bats. If you go there, the bat grabs you and takes you to some other room at random, so teleportation essentially. And the Wumpus, who usually he's asleep, but you can wake him up by firing an arrow or entering his room. When he wakes up, he groggily moves to the next cave. This is one of the caves next to him. That's our instructions, I think. Oh, there's a 1 in 4 chance he will stay still, and a 3/4 chance of moving. If he ends up in your cave, he will eat you up, and you lose. All right. You can either move or shoot an arrow, and you have only 5 arrows. So if you don't want to shoot yourself, you can actually shoot yourself in this game. All right. Oh yes, and some warnings. These are really important. These warnings. I smell a Wumpus. You're 1 room away from the Wumpus. I hear wing flaps. You're 1 room away from bats. I feel a draft. You're 1 room away from the pit. Okay, so here we go. Uh-oh. So right away we're next to a room with one of the bats in it. I'm in room 17. I can go to room 6, 7, 16, or 8. So I'm going to move to room 16. Oop, that's not possible. So move to room 16. There we go. Uh-oh. So this is already a very refined version of Hump the Wumpus. This is not the version that would have been there in the Basic Computer Games, because you've got special effects like flaps, the word flap appearing all over that would definitely not be in the very, very early one, because the early versions would be much more like what I have here, right? You saw it's basically just a continuous printout on my screen. And that would be what you would get in Hunt the Wumpus in the original version. Okay, anyhow, we're now in room 2. Okay, let's move to room 3. I feel a draft. Okay, we don't want to fall into a pit, so we know that either one of these 3 rooms, either 4 or 12 are a bottomless pit. We don't want to go into 4 or 12. And so what you're doing here is really a mapping game, right? So I'm going to go move back to room 2 because I want to play it safe. And I'm going to move to room 10. Okay, now we're next to a super bat room. Okay, well, that could be a little bit dangerous. So now we know that room 9 or 11 are super bat rooms. Okay, so let's go back to our room 2. So this is the safe way to play. You can also just like play without worrying about this. I'm going to try going to room 1. Okay, now this is a safe room. I can go to rooms 5 or 8 quite safely because none of them have any of these warnings, right? Okay, now I'm next to and now if I'm actually playing this thoughtfully, I'll end up with a map that I could probably write down. Okay, well, rooms 4 or 6 are now a pit room. Does this correlate with any of the other rooms that I was in? So I'm just gonna play carelessly now and go to room 4.
Yeah, I was playing this. Oh, I was playing this just a bit, and the bats took me to a room with more bats.
Oh,
I
great!
actually played one round that went very similarly. I walked into bats, which took me to more bats, which decided I should go in a hole. And if you think that's unlucky, one game I literally started. The first 3 lines are: "You feel a draft. You feel a draft. You hear wing flaps."
Oh shoot! So your only safe bet was to go to the super bat room.
TLDR, I lost immediately. I
Yeah.
also have played multiple rounds where I just immediately shoot an arrow and win.
All right. Well, yeah. So that's totally. Anybody else want to share their experience of this game?
Try dying immediately.
Yeah, you died immediately.
Yeah, just after the first move.
Yeah,
It didn't show I smell a wumpus, which was strange. And I'm thinking it was a glitch, but I did read it.
Yeah.
And then I walked into a room and I died.
Cadmiel.
I was able to fire on the wumpus the instinct that the pet said that I smell a wumpus. There were 2 rooms that I could possibly fire at. I was somehow able to fire at the correct one.
Oh, wow. Nice. Well, I mean, it's a 50-50 chance, right? So, yeah, it's an interesting little game. Probably one of the most interesting bits of this game in terms of its historical development is the fact that it's not a grid system. It's got rooms, and these rooms are connected to one another, but they're not connected to one another in your standard issue. You know, this one goes north, this one goes east, this one goes south, this one goes west. I'm getting east and west mixed up, but anyhow, it's and this actually, in this sense, this is a precursor to some games that we will encounter a little later. Most famously, the Colossal Cave Adventure, and which also takes place in a cave, and its successors, the Zork text adventures. It's not got and it has to some extent the feel of these text adventures. It's all text, obviously, and but it's a simple game, but it's actually, you know, reasonably challenging. You've got some random elements in it, and it's as I say, a precursor to these later, much more complex text adventures. Anybody else want to comment on this game in terms of what it reminds you of, or other possible contexts for? No, I'll move on to the next. All right, moving right along. I actually really like Hunt the Olympus. It's a very simple game, but it's actually a lot of fun. Super Star Trek. So this one, we're getting into what are really the limits of the of basic computer games. You'll notice there's a remark if you look at the program listing of Super Star Trek. So I'm going to just click on that. And the remark in the very first line, it says requires 24K of memory. Now, 24K nowadays seems trivial. Like, okay, well, I think we'll have enough room for that. But back then, there were a number of computer systems on the market that shipped with 8K. And as I said, my color computer that I bought shipped with only 16K. So this was a complex game by those early standards, such that it actually required more of the computer, so that you needed a more advanced computer system to just be able to run this game. And you can start to see some of the. You can also see the complexity of this game in terms of the listing. You see, it's a much longer game than say Hammurabi, right? So even just in terms of line numbers, you're already into like the thousands. Now it's not actually quite that long, obviously, because we're generally going up by 10. So if I went into my text editor here and pasted it here, it's actually only 425 lines long. What takes up the most room in this game, in terms of the programming of this game, is you can actually see it in line 330, where it starts to this dim. This dim command is a multi-dimensional array. So here we have a variable g, which is 8, so that's 8 times 8. That's now 64 bytes of data, not just one. And then c, it takes up 9, 2. So all of these are multi-dimensional arrays, and in order to create a multi-dimensional map. Now it's obviously not 3-dimensional; it's only 2-dimensional. But it's still it's a much more advanced game. So, and if I move over to where I have this one running here in my, there we go. I should, let's see, can I scroll in? This is too small really to see. Oops, nope, that's really not what I want. All right, maybe that will work. Yeah, there we go. Oh, except it's okay. I'm just gonna get rid of the magnifier. What I really want to do is no. All right. Well, anyhow, hopefully you can see my screen. We have some really wonderful little ASCII text art of the USS Enterprise, NCC 1701. This is, of course, the original Star Trek, because this is a very old game. It was not official. It was not licensed in any way, shape, or form. It was just some programmer really wanted to play a Star Trek game, so he made up this Star Trek game. And your orders are as follows: destroy the 19 Klingon warships which have invaded the galaxy before they can attack the Federation headquarters on stardate 3127. This gives me 27 days. There are 4 star bases in the galaxy for resupplying your ship. Your mission begins with your starship located in the galactic quadrant Sirius 3. And there's my ship. It's represented. And actually, this is a pretty sophisticated way to use, again, ASCII art to give you a 2-dimensional readout of what the quadrant looks like. My ship is actually next to a star system, and there's another star down there, and there's another star over there. And here's my quadrant. You don't want to run into any stars. And then you have the command. And and another illustration of just how advanced this game is that there's a completely separate listing for the instructions for the game. so you now, if I want to here, enter one nav to set the course. So let's do nav. Notice it's case sensitive. What course? 0 to 9. I can't remember. There's like a this is showing basically, if you look at the keyboard, if you have a keyboard with a numpad on it, that would give you, I do have one over here. So let's say I want to do 3. That should, and then warp factor 0.1. Okay, 3 is apparently up. Oh, good. Good thing I didn't run into that star. Okay. So that wasn't what I was expecting. I was expecting 3 to be somewhere else. All right. So let's do nav 3, 1, and that will get me to another star sector. And then I've got a report, a message from Starfleet Command. Oh, I can't because I've tried to cross the galactic perimeter. Okay, so let's do a navigation, and I'm going to do a different course. Let's do 6 and 0.1. Okay, that's going that direction. Again, I didn't expect that, but anyhow, nav. I should read the instructions. 9, 1. There we go. Now I'm entering a new quadrant, and there's more stars here. But there's no Klingons. So let's do nav. I don't know, 7. Another. Oh, now I've got two Klingons to attack. Okay, well, let's do phasers, and I'm gonna fire 500 units. Oh, I destroyed one of the Klingons and damaged one of the other. Uh-oh. The Enterprise was destroyed. Ah! I died already. Okay, well.
I recommend putting some power to the shields.
Oh, yes, of course. I forgot to put power to the shields. That's kind of important. And yeah. I've shields up. So it's actually this is a game I actually spent quite a bit of time on, because it's if you're at all a Star Trek fan, it's actually a pretty good game, because you have to put power to the shields, like duh. There's star systems to run into. You have phasers and photon torpedoes. You've got a visual layout. So it's actually a pretty cool game. Well, okay, yeah, but Star Wars comes a lot later than this game. Which Star Wars game are you thinking of, Blake? Oh, well, yes. But the Nintendo Entertainment System isn't out yet. We're not there yet. Well, yes. Yeah. So did anybody actually win this game, or play it long enough to win? No. Okay. This is but you can see now where things are going, right? We're not just like, if we compare this to Hammurabi is just a wall of text. Now in Star Trek, we have the same wall of text, but we actually have some graphics, ASCII art, right? But those graphics actually are significant. You can, I don't know if anybody actually ran into a star system, but you can actually navigate your way into a star and blow up the Enterprise. Not recommended if you want to win the game. So the graphics actually matter to a certain extent in this game. All right, I'd love to spend more time on Star Trek, but we're running out of time, and I really want to. But okay, no. Before I move on, I again want to ask the same question here. What does this game remind you of in terms of our more modern games? Cadmiel.
Star Trek Fleet Command.
Yes. And Star Trek Fleet Command actually, in many respects, does trace its lineage back to this game. And there are other games as well. We might not get to it, but there was a really great game on the Atari. I can't remember if it was the 400 or 800. Atari actually made a computer So they didn't just make the Atari VCS or video cartridge system. They actually made a computer, and that one, I do hope we'll get to that one, called Star Raiders. And it actually uses this sector system. So the galaxy, the map is divided up into quadrants and sectors, and you can navigate between them, and you have enemies in the different sectors. So that it references that, but again, I really like the fact that you picked up on the modern Star Trek Fleet Command actually does trace some of its gameplay all the way back to this basic version. Yes, my friend had an Atari. I can't remember if it was a 400 or an 800, but I actually played Star Raiders, so I do hope we're going to get to that one. All right, so we're running out of time, and I really want to get to this one last game here. So here I have, because this game was for me, and this game is not a famous game. So Star Trek was actually a really famous game. Like of all those games, Hammurabi and Star Trek and Hunt the Wumpus, those ones were actually pretty famous. Lots and lots of people played them and spent lots of time playing them. Maybe not so much Hammurabi, but the Hunt the Wumpus and Star Trek definitely. But this game that I want to introduce now, oops, I need to actually open the file, get the input tape, and this game, Stellar Empires, is a game where 1 to 4 players try to conquer the entire galaxy. And if you didn't play this one, then actually, let me just pause for a second. How many of you, show of hands, how many of you actually played this? Yes? And did you play like a full game? No, you didn't get that far. So, played this. Did anybody actually finish a game? No. Okay. It does require some perseverance. Luke, Luke and Noah, did you finish?
It was only 6 turns long, though, so it probably.
Oh, okay. Well, that doesn't really. Yeah. Okay.
I tried with the computer and it just failed immediately because I have no idea what I'm doing and everything blew up. So yay!
Right.
I tried reading the instructions.
Do require you to read the instructions, as you can see from my own gameplay here. I haven't bothered to review the instructions. I will. Sina's chiming in here. She's actually played, and she has played a full game with me, and 2 computer players. And was it fun, Sina?
Yeah.
Yeah, she vouches for me. It was really fun. It does take a little bit of time to get into, but let me just now that I've got it in. Okay, so here here's the instructions. Interestingly, this is another really demanding game. It basically pushes the architecture of the color computer to its limits, so that the instructions are possibly inspired by Star Trek, a completely separate program than the game itself. So you'll notice here. So there's a quiz later. There isn't a quiz later. You have 9 options each turn, and then it goes through some of these options, shows you how things are laid out. So the first number is the class of the system. You can have 1, 2, 3, or 4 class systems. The higher the number, the more resources it produces, but 3 and 4 will also rebel against you. The letter is the first initial of that star system name, and then the color block is yellow if you control the system and orange if you don't. And there's the breakdown of how they rebel. You might need an occupation force. You need to send ships into into hyperspace to get to another star system, and the computer is programmed to conquer. Yes, but the computer is actually pretty lame. And notice it says loading. So remember what I said. This is actually a separate program. It's now just loaded in the separate program, which is the game. And now I press run, and Stellar Empires. How many players? I'm just going to do a 2-player game. How long do I want to play in turns? I recommend, like, I don't know, something like 30 turns. There's 15 star systems. I'm going to, okay, I always just do the same name. Okay, so here I am. Notice it's actually taking a while. So it's right now it's setting up the game. And again, even on this emulated, which is slightly faster system, and there's the one sound effect of in the entire. It takes a little while. So again, you're met with a wall of text. So not terribly user-friendly in modern terms. I have one star system. It's a class 4 star system. It gives me 9 RU, which is resource units, which allows protection of one starship. What's your command? I always start with look at the star map. All right, so here I am. Here's my star map. I don't know exactly where the computer is, but I've played this a gazillion times in my youth, so I know actually that the computer is probably on Mizar. That's his probably his home planet. It's on the other side of the galaxy from me. And then I can start to. I've memorized the commands. 6 is hyperspace, so I want to do D, N to send some ships into hyperspace. I'm just going to send 1. 6 B, J 1 6 D, A. Oops, I have no starships. Oh, shoot. Okay, now the computer is deciding a move because pressing enter is your default for ending your turn. Now, again, not very user-friendly. But actually, I'm just going to go for one more turn just to give a sense of gameplay. Okay, my Jakara was a class 2 system. My 1 starship arrived at the system. Norion, my 1 starship went into battle against 3 native warships. The native force was victorious, but they lost 1 warship. Press enter to continue. All right, so now, oops. When I look at the map, I now know a few things. So all the rest are still question marks. But I now know that this one is a class 3 system, and I'm going to have to send more ships if I want to conquer that one. And I know this one's a class 2 star system, which won't rebel, which is great, and it gives me more resources for my for creating ships. And you get the basic idea. I mean, it actually does get a lot more fun when you're up against the computer player and the computer player is sending fleets and destroying your planets and taking them over. Want to pause there for any to invite any comments or thoughts on this game. Cadmiel, go ahead, go for it.
I think this game is probably the AI is actually really complex despite its horrible decisions because this game has quite a big quite a lot of moves actually. Like you can send 1 starship from system 1 to system 2, 2 starships to system 1 to system 2, so on. That's quite a lot of moves. So it's actually kind of impressive how the AI is actually functional at all.
Yeah. I trash talk the AIs, but it is actually quite impressive that you have an artificial intelligence some programming enough programming has been able to be put into programming the computer players that they can actually present a real challenge taking over the galaxy, especially if you're just playing the for the very first time. I would love to hear more. Like of all the games that that we've covered today, I think the 2 that I would want to play still nowadays are Super Star Trek and Stellar Empires. The other thing I wanted to point out is that while the term 4X has not been established yet, this is actually a very early game of in the 4X genre. So the term 4X apparently has its if you're familiar with that term at all, It actually has its roots in Masters of Orion, which was a brilliant game. I'm kind of hoping that Master of Orion. I kind of hoping that we might get to that one. The 4X is explore, expand, exploit, and exterminate. And that really does describe this game. We want to explore the galaxy and make all these question marks, or the whatever it is, sector, star sector, and make all these question marks visible and ownership of the planets visible by sending our ships through hyperspace. We want to expand our empire. We want to exploit the resources of the planets that the star systems that we conquer, and we want to exterminate the other player. So there are a lot of games, particularly strategy games, that fall into this 4X category. Any thoughts on ones that you guys might know?
Whoop whoop, Hollow Knight.
What's that?
Hollow Knight, a game built on exploration. You find an area. Oh yeah, you can expand the areas in which you can destroy everything in your path.
I'm not sure I would. I mean, I have to admit I haven't played Hollow Knight, but both my daughter and my son who are here listening are shaking their heads, and they have both played Hollow Knight extensively. I don't think it's quite the same.
It's the closest thing I've played.
Okay, well, I think maybe in the sense that you open up other areas in Hollow Knight. I think it's more Metroidvania.
Yeah, it is Metroidvania.
Yeah.
That's what it limited or something?
I promise I've beaten the game. I got true ending.
Luke, what you have your hand up?
In terms of strategy games, I've played Fire Emblems, specifically Three Houses. So I guess with that strategy element, moving different units to different places, I suppose that's kind of the closest in that respect game that I've played.
I would personally like it to one of the older Fire Emblem games because if you lose a ship, it's gone forever. As opposed to, it doesn't matter.
But wasn't it you, Luke, who mentioned Civilization?
Yeah, my dad plays Civilization quite a bit.
So I think Civilization's a much closer fit with this. I mean, admittedly, Civilization has more aspects to it than this does, but you are exploring the world, expanding, you're exploiting, and you're exterminating the enemy players in Civilization. So I admittedly I haven't played Fire Emblem, but I think a game along the lines of Civilization is going to be closer to this, or actually any real-time strategy game, even though this is not real-time. Cadmiel.
I haven't really played any online 4X genre games, but I have played Catan, which I feel is very close to the 4X category.
Yeah, in some respects, so even though in Catan you do have your whole map revealed at the beginning, but definitely that kind of expansion of your empire that is at the heart of Settlers of Catan is along these lines, and in many respects derivative of these computer games. Yeah.
Is Starflight any similar to it?
No, I wouldn't. Starflight is. I'm really hoping to get to Starflight. Starflight is not this kind of genre at all.
Mule?
Maybe Mule. Yes and no. Luke, you have your hand up again.
Sorry about that. I didn't mean to have it up.
Oh, no worries. Anyhow, so I one of the other things, the last thing I kind of want to point out is about these games, besides the fact that, as I say, these really are precursors to some fairly significant later games, in many respects. These games like Super Star Trek and Stellar Empires really do push the computing technology of the day and the what you can do with a basic computer program to the limits. And I do also have to just say, in terms of Stellar Empires, one of the reasons this game is so beloved to me is that I can actually break into the program and as with any basic computer game, I can list the program. So if I list to 500, here is the program listing, and because, as I say, my computer came with a manual that taught me how to program in BASIC. This was my entry into basic computer programming, because I could modify the game. Like, for one of the things that I immediately did with this game was as soon as I kind of mastered it, and could have a sense of how the game worked, and realized the computers are not actually that powerful or that smart, even though it is actually impressive that they can work at all. I actually upped the difficulty level by adding more computer players. So I would go first against 3 computer players, and then I would change the variable which specified the maximum number of players, and changed it to 8. So now you can have 7 computer players and 1 human player, which makes things a little more difficult and definitely makes it take longer, because the computers have more time to think. And then of course I had to then troubleshoot, because the game wasn't actually designed for 8 players, and I had to learn. This was one of the ways I actually learned computer programming, was going into the program listing, figuring out what parts of the program do what, and how could I modify the program. So early modding, actually, if you will. Okay, I've kept you longer than I should. My apologies. But as I say, I've been really excited about this particular class. I'm also excited about next class, which I actually don't know at this point what I'm going to be teaching next class. But I do have kind of an overall basic, no pun intended there, trajectory, which will slowly get us through this history. So as I say, I'll try and get the content for next class up soon. Maybe tomorrow. If not, then maybe the day after tomorrow. I'll open that up so that you can know what games we're going to be covering and get a head start on playing them.
Hey, Dad.
Yes.
If you modified Stellar Empires to be able to have 8 people instead, where would their homeworlds be placed? Well,
that was one of the bugs I had to iron out. Zancina asks, if I modify Stellar Empires so that there's now 8 players, I also had to figure out, oh, wait a second, it's trying to place the homeworlds in impossible places and throwing errors at me. So I had to actually go in and figure out the code, like, well, that determined which homeworld was going to be assigned to which player, and make sure that it didn't break because there were now 8 players instead of 4. So, all right, I must let you all go. It's been great. I hope you've had at least somewhere close to as much fun as I have, and I am looking forward to seeing you all again next week.